Mr. Farris, thank you for having me out here. I've been lucky enough to be here in the past, but when we wanted to do a behind the dog film on the poodle pointer, we just couldn't find anybody else with a poodle pointer. So I started looking it up in Wikipedia, and there was your picture. How did you become the name synonymous? Not the only name, but there isn't anybody in the poodle pointer world that doesn't either know of you or your dog lines.
I've never really thought of myself the way you just described me, but every now and then I'll be somewhere away from here and somebody will know who I am and come up to me, and it's like, wow, how'd that happen?
Right.
But it
was never a master plan.
Never intentional.
Right.
In some ways not so much. I mean, I remember being in North Dakota with my son pheasant hunting, and we went to a bar one evening, and 3 people came up to me that knew who I was. Mm-hmm. And Bryce said, "Does everybody in this state know who you are, Dad?"
You're like,
and he said, "You've been here before. You've been landed in jail or something."
Right.
But I don't know. I was pheasant hunting out in a field, and I ran into a guy. I watered his setter for him and introduced myself, and he goes, "Oh my God, you're Bob Farris." He said, "Could you stay right here? I'm going to run to my truck and get a piece of paper. I want you to sign it for me." And I thought, are you crazy?
Let me start with an easier question. Where was the start of your dog training and dog owning world? I know it wasn't with poodle pointers.
I started with an English setter to hunt pheasants. This is in the late 60s.
Okay.
The pheasant limit was 4. With 2 licenses, you could kill 8 roosters a day. So I bought a setter, and then I did some field trialing with the dog, and then I discovered duck hunting. And Boise used to winter over 1 million mallards in the winter. Fabulous duck hunting. The limit was 10, and you could kill 10 greenheads every day. So I had to have a water dog, so I bought a Chesapeake. I had a neighbor down the road that raised them, and John Lundy, a local dentist, raised Chesapeakes, and he's in the Retriever Hall of Fame now.
And he just happened to live in Boise.
He just happened to live in Boise. So I looked at that as being the sound breed, and I wanted a strong water dog. And next thing you know, I'm field trialing Chesapeakes and having a great time at it. And
now, you didn't have somebody train them for you.
No. I had 3 kennels here, 3 chain link kennels, and I had 3 male Chesapeakes that lived here with me, and I field trialed the 3 of them. And then I had a doctor ask me to train his lab. And I thought, well, I can make some extra money training a dog, so I charged him $200 a month or something to train his lab, and it just kind of escalated. And I mean, I remember one time I had 15 dogs in training, and I was taking them out.
And a full-time job.
So I set my hours where I'd go in at work at 6, get off at 2:30, and I was keeping my training dogs out at Dave McGinnis's kennel, and he would feed them and clean up after them. Right. And he had bird pens and fields and water, and so I'd drive out there and train till dark. And this all became more and more important as my kids got older and decided to go to college.
But this was all the retriever world.
It was retrievers and setters and a lot of short hairs. I probably trained 600 gun dogs. And then a guy brought me a poodle pointer and wanted me to hunt it. He was already trained.
He specifically said,
I want you to hunt this dog on wild birds. And the dog had been trained and NAVDA tested by Bodo Winterhelt. I didn't know who Bodo Winterhelt was.
Oh, this is that far back.
Yeah. So I took the dog in, and I thought, God, what am I? I'm going to leave my beautiful setter at home and take this bushy-faced, bob-tailed dog out, and my friends are going to laugh at me. And the first bird I shot lit in the Snake River. It was a big old rooster, and I thought, oh God, if I had my setter, I'd be watching it float away. And all of a sudden, splash, and this little brown dog went out and retrieved the pheasant. The next bird I shot, I crippled it. 10 minutes later, the dog came back with the bird in its mouth, and I thought, I got to get me one of these. I got to have one as a meat dog. This dog is incredible, because it hunted, it tracked, it pointed, it swam in the water.
Yeah.
So I found a dog. John Cagle got me a dog in Ontario, Canada, and it was 6 months old. So I bought the dog, and I had Blitz here as a hunting dog, and I kind of phased out the setters. Then I got to know Bodo, who Bodo was, and visited with him a few times. I went up to Washington when Bodo was living there, spent a week with him, learning how to train tracking and just his concept,
Right.
which was vastly different than the American type of bird dog training or even retriever
And we
training.
should probably say, for not everybody that knows who Bodo is, but he did all this in Germany with dogs.
Right.
He came to America with that European dog training and philosophy. Did he not bring the first Pudelpointer, or is he known for that?
Oh yeah, Dr. Hulme, and kind of financially supported the bringing, I can't remember the dog's name that he brought over. He and John Cagle started NAVDA, and Cagle had Pudelpointers at the time.
Oh, he did?
Yeah. Then they didn't get along, so Cagle switched to German wire hairs, and Bodo stayed with the Pudelpointers. Bodo then eventually moved out ended up in California. When I lost Blitz, my first Pudelpointer, I contacted Bodo, and he said, well, there's a litter of puppies up in Calgary. The mother is a prize 1 utility dog. The father is a prize 1 utility dog. This is the first time in the history of the Pudelpointer that this type of breeding has ever been done. And he said, you need to get 2. Think about getting 2. So I bought 2 females and raised them up as puppies. There wasn't a NAVDA test here in Idaho at the time.
Right.
So I had to take them to a Griffon test. So I went to Jerome and tested under Joan Bailey and some of the Griffon people. And that's where I met Jeff Funke. He had German wire hairs.
Right.
But the thing about Jeff was he was a really knowledgeable hunter, because he hunted cougars, and he used his wire hair as a strike dog behind his hounds. And the wire hairs was to protect his hounds from a wounded cat. Jeff's the real deal as a hunter. So we became friends, and a lot of history there.
Right. Did you start testing all your dogs, even if you had to travel? Was that something you did with all your early dogs?
Yeah, I've handled, I think, 105 different natural ability dogs that I've trained and handled. I've trained and handled over 50 utility dogs. And I wanted people to know that I had good dogs before I bred them. Back in those days, I wanted to put a utility prize on my females before I bred them. And I kind of took that theory from Bob Whaley of Cedarwood Kennels. I called Bob Whaley one time, and about 2 weeks later, after I left him a message, he returned my phone call, and the conversation went about like this. Robert G. Whaley here. You left me a message. What would be the purpose of our conversation? Oh, Christ, man, this...
Not Mr. Friendly.
No. Well, you're just very strong. And so I told him I just wanted to learn about line breeding, and I had Pudelpointers, and I wanted to create a line that could handle water equal to a Chesapeake. And so he said, so how many dogs do you own? And I said, well, I own 2 females, they're litter mates, and then I own a male that's not related. And there was kind of a pause, and he said, mister, you're nothing more than an effing backyard breeder. He said, when you have 5 males and 15 females, call me. We'll have a conversation. Wow. Click.
Wow.
I'll tell you, that made me think, and that made me realize that you don't just breed dogs and make, you better have a better plan. I got to studying. I bought his book then. I bought The Making of Snakefoot, his second book. And he was the first one to realize that you need to field champion your females. That was maybe more important than the males. So Whaley started campaigning females, and
which was unheard of, really.
Nobody did that.
Right.
The females.
They didn't want to deal with that.
Well, she was a brood bitch.
Right.
That's all she was a brood bitch.
Right.
I learned a lot about my dogs then, training for utility and whatnot. And as time went on, you got to start looking at the numbers. And now I don't. I probably will never run another female in utility, because I think I've got it figured out. And what I've figured out is what I see hunting, especially waterfowl hunting.
Mm-hmm.
When I go to the Snake River and I see the willingness of a dog to swim across a 200, 300 yard river after a crippled duck, I know I got the...
You don't need a test to tell you how good that dog is.
No.
Yeah.
And if I didn't have that opportunity, I would probably say I better utility test. In today's world, when you think about a female, if you test her in natural ability, you have a really nice score, and you decide to breed her when she's 2 years old, and maybe a second time when she's 3, you don't have time for that utility. If you do the utility, probably the earliest you're going to breed that dog is 4.
Right. If you do it in a regular progressive, get a couple hunting seasons and training seasons.
So you've kind of missed the best curve.
Right.
And I don't know. I've always gone back to, and I keep notes on individual dogs in a file as to what, not how many birds they produce, but how successful they hunt. And I do a lot of it on chucker hunting. You really see how dogs can figure out how to handle a covey of chuckers. So many people don't realize how tough chucker hunting is in the beginning for a dog, because the cover is like...
The cover is rocks.
Birds are up walking around. They see the dog 50 yards away coming, and so they either start running, they tuck down, then the dog gets within 20 yards, they flush, and nobody gets a shot. Dogs have to learn that they have to stay out of sight of where they think the birds are that they're smelling. You see a lot of 50 to 100 yard points. When you hunt pheasants, there's so much cover that you'll see a dog point 5 to 10 feet away from the rooster.
Right.
A dog learns that I can get a lot closer.
Right.
Go into a bunch of cattails and watch how close a dog will point a pheasant. They'll try to catch it.
Right.
Because they know I can get within 3 inches. Well, if I'm 3 inches away, I might as well just grab it.
Right.
So these are things you kind of that I kind of learn, and I kind of try to forecast the IQ of a hunting dog when I'm out hunting them. Right. And you can't do it on planted birds. You absolutely cannot do it on planted birds.
So is it safe to say that, like, when I say, like, what's your breeding philosophy, it's got to be an excellent hunting, wild bird hunting. It has to be. Like, it's a go, no go. If just because she could pass a test does not mean she can hunt wild birds.
Well, probably can. But if you want to rate a dog 1 through 10, you know, you're not going to rate it as a 10 on a NAVDA test. Come on. And I've said this for years. When I field trialed retrievers, we did not know what was going to be set up at the field trial. The judges came, and they might start with a single mark, a single blind, a triple mark. You didn't know. You had no idea.
We have make that 2 favors to ask you. If you like the content you've been watching, please hit the like and the subscribe button, and wish me luck. We're going grouse hunting.